Hi everyone, this is Lauren coming at you from the break zone. I'm going to start off with an announcement that we're going to be live streaming the Kansas City Petite Cup this weekend. So it should start on Sunday, 11 a.m. So keep tuned. Hopefully you are on our Facebook group with everybody else at the Final Fantasy TCG US. We'll put a link up over there. We'll try to put it up on Reddit as well, so that you guys can stay posted until all the festivities begin. So it's going to be this Sunday, by the way, Sunday morning. We're going to start off bright and early around 11 a.m. Kansas City time, whatever time that translates to for you in your time zone. Hopefully you're excited. Haven't seen a good live streamed event in a while. I believe the last one was Winter Cup, and I'm actually very excited to be a part of it. Thank you, Square Enix, for having us come by and live stream this event with you. Okay, so we're gonna start off this video with, well, good old buddy Golbez, the Big Bez, whatever you want to call him. Uh, he's kind of big and he does things. So a 6 lightning CP forward. When Golbez is put from the field into the break zone, you may search up to 4 forwards of cost 2, each of a different element, and play them onto the field. Their auto abilities will not trigger, and he comes in at 9,000 power. Alright, so you're going to have to dissect this down to a couple of things. First of all, 6 cost 9k, that's just about on curve. I mean, 6 up 9k with an ability, something that gets you kind of a discount, an extra card, is something that we're used to for now. Normally, it's more like a 5 drop 9k is good, but he definitely comes in with some value. So you get, when he is put from the field into the break zone, that means broken or anything that says put from the field to the break zone. Nothing that removes him from the game. As long as he's not removed from the game, he will still trigger his ability. Um, if he is not returned to your hand, that is. Then you get to search for up to 4 forwards of different element of exactly cost 2. So don't try to get fancy with anything like a 1-drop snow. That's not going to work. Then you get to put them onto the field. Um, Also, no auto abilities will trigger. So no Seraphy, no Argith, nothing that says when it enters the field, do something. You want to look for those 2-drop forwards that have innate abilities that when they're on the field, they either get bigger or give a boost to something else, or if they're more effective in a group, or if they're just a very big body or very effective. Okay, so let's take a couple of things. Let's take a couple looks, because what happens with Golbez also that you have to realize is um, you got to start putting in some cards of different elements, which is kind of difficult to handle. Um, it's hard to play more than 2 colors in a deck effectively. I've seen it. It's not easy. You have to do a lot of searching, digging, and card draw in order to do that. For the most part, there's a good reason why a lot of people like mono element decks. They're a lot easier to handle, and so in this case, usually you want to put as few of those forwards of different elements as you can, but you want to put enough that you can have 1 or 2 effective goal best cracks that can actually dig in and get those out. What happens sometimes with Golbez is, is that it's more of a aggressive combo deck, and if you wait too long to crack your Golbez, he's gonna be, yeah, he's a 9k, that's good, but as you start drawing into those cards and you can't play them, those 2 cost forwards of different elements, then you're gonna start losing your value if Golbez ever gets broken. All of a sudden, you're gonna run out of targets to actually search, and your first one might get you 4, your second one might get you like 2 or 3, if anything at all. So you want to play aggressively, play Golbez, and we're going to look at ways to crack Golbez even when your opponent doesn't want to do it for you. One of the original ways to do it was Kefka. So with Kefka, what you can do is choose one of your forwards, give it a 5,000 power boost until the end of the turn, and then you break that forward. So you could get your Golbez bigger, break it at the end of the turn, yours or your opponent's, by using Kefka's ability. And another useful trick with Kefka is that you can effectively also pump, boost your 2-drop forwards that you search with Golbez after Golbez is gone. Another way to do it is with Delita. So when Delita enters the field, choose one character you control, break it, and he comes in at 9,000 power. So You trade in your 9,000 power Golbez for 9,000 power Delita and 4 forwards. Yeah, that's pretty good value. Another way that came in Opus 3 was Famfrit. So with Famfrit, what you do is you start attacking with the Golbez. Your opponent maybe puts a forward out or not, and then you play your Famfrit at the end of your opponent's turn, effectively allowing you to attack with the 4 forwards you search for with Golbez on your following turn. With all those 2-drop forwards that you got, why not put in a Gapal? I mean, you're running some Earth cards most likely to break your Golbez, so Gapal will pump him up, give him 4,000 power boost until end of turn, and hopefully get in that last couple of damage. If not, just effectively put your um, opponent on his back foot. And while you're playing Earth, Hecatoncheir is a card to consider when playing a Golbez deck. Choose one backup, cost 3 or more, break it. The reason being is that one of the original cards that was able to counter Golbez was Heroic Yuna, because what happens is when a character is put from the field into the break zone, they may choose to put it to remove it from the game instead of putting it in the break zone. So that would effectively keep um, Golbez's effect from triggering, and thus you need a way to kind of get around it. And Yuna has been coming back into popularity lately due to Vanille shenanigans happening, so it wouldn't be too bad to think about it at least. All right, one of the old school methods of playing Golbez deck was the Oops All Forward Golbez decks. They're still around. They're a lot of fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed playing this Gilgamesh before. I actually got a signed copy from Kageyama from Nationals, and yeah, he's great. 4-drop forward, brave, strongest sword, special ability. Discard one copy of itself and dull. Choose one forward. Remove the top card of your deck from the game. If the removed card is a forward, break it. If not, deal it 3,000 damage at 8,000 power. So he's on curve and then some. He's also got brave. So a cool trick you do with him is you you play him on the turn that you can attack with him. Since he has brave, you attack, and then you trigger his ability, and you break it forward. So if they were to have a blocker that was large enough to block him and kill him, and break him, instead you've broken it, and you're still going to deal that 1 point of damage. He's very efficient, and also the fact that there have been quite a few copies of Gilgamesh printed throughout the sets. Even in set 1, there were already 3 copies. This one being the first one, next one being Starter Gilgamesh, one of the better ones. Also, he's a good counter to bounce effects, so water. So if they try to Leviathan, they won't be able to do it with Gilgamesh. Also, this one, the special ability is very good when you're actually losing when you're not the aggressive player, or mid late game when you start taking some damage. But hopefully, as a Golbez deck, you won't be in that situation. Reason being is that the special ability on this Gilgamesh Divider, with discard one copy of itself and 2 lightning CP, choose one forward, break it. But you can only use this ability if you have received 4 points of damage or more. So most of the time, you're not going to be the one taking that much damage, and you might not be able to get that ability until mid late game, where Golbez usually has quite a bit of issues. And here's a third copy from Opus 1, Gilgamesh. This one, Morphing Time. I've actually never gotten it to fire off, but it sounds really cool. Discard a copy of itself, 2 lightning CP. Until the end of the turn, Gilgamesh doubles its power and gains First Strike and Brave. Gilgamesh can attack twice this turn. You can only use this ability during your turn. 7,000 power for 3 lightning CP. So he's pretty good, but I don't know. The way I feel about forwards and their special abilities, if while he's on curve, there's definitely other three drops I'd rather use instead of him if I could. Let's not forget that Golbez can also play the Alcid combo, so you start really packing your deck full of cards at that point. And yeah, so in terms of 3 drops, I would definitely pick a different one normally for if it was not for playing if you're not playing the no backup route with Gilgamesh. And Opus 4 brought us another Gilgamesh. This one is very versatile. You can kind of see all the abilities he has there. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's going to take me a while otherwise. Um, Pretty good card, and it counts for the bravest, strongest sword. So let's go over some of the original and the updated two drop lists that Golbez usually like to go with. One of them being Zidane. Um, he used to be very annoying. He still is, but there are other copies of him now, being Light Zidane and Heroic Zidane also. That lets you pick a card out of your opponent's hand. Um, he hasn't been as popular lately. He used to be a great counter to the meta when everything was 4 drops and higher. At this point, there's a lot more 3/2 drops that are being used nowadays, and thus they can effectively block him really easily. But back then, he was a big thorn on everybody's side. You'd always have to make a deck with at least a forward of cost. You always have to keep in mind that if all your forwards were 4 and above, you would take a couple points from the Dane easily if your opponent were to play him. So that was something to keep in mind. And when deck building, you'd actually end up thinking about adding a couple of suboptimal choices. Back then, not so much now, where 3 drops were not as prevalent and powerful as they became in Opus 3. Onion Knight, haste forward, counts as an element because he's light, so he doesn't count as the other elements. And yeah, sometimes you just want to get that haste damage with him and Tifa also, so that would be 2 points of haste damage if your opponent had an empty board. And otherwise, you could pull in Wire of Light if your opponent was playing 4 drop forwards. Then he would effectively trade with them pretty easily and effectively and efficiently. He is definitely one of those cards that when the right situation presents itself, he is a house. All right, Mime. Sometimes Blue didn't give us the best answers at times, and well, I mean, with Golbez, you dump out your whole hand, and Mime was kind of there to help you out. Also, the fact that it could partner up with any of the other elements that except for light and dark. Then you could pump your other forwards and get a draw effect out of it while keeping your other forwards alive. So they'd have to make a decision between, well, if I block, let's say a 9-10k party attack with one of my forwards, and my force has to break, which one do I want to take out? Do I want to take out the forward that Mime is partying with, or Mime itself? Because if I don't take out Mime, then they'll do the same thing next turn. So, the Opus 3 release gave us a lot of those Type 0 cadets. And yeah, they kind of made their own little package out of it. So, 7 being pretty useful in that not only does it make it harder for your opponent to block due to the ability of giving the job class 0 cadet forwards you control not being able to be blocked by a forward of cost 4 or more, kind of like that Zidane ability. But the thing about Zidane is also he couldn't be targeted by your opponent's abilities and summons. This time they could still be targeted, even though 7 gives them the evasive ability of Zidane. Also, Snake Bite being a special that's actually quite useful. By discarding a copy of its or herself, choose one special ability or auto ability, cancel its effect. So one of the other counters to Golbez was board wipe, specifically Shantoto. Shantoto being effective at removing Golbez from the game, and also removing all the forwards from the game that he searched for, if it came to be that. With Snakebite, you're able to cancel out the auto ability of Shantoto. So when Shantoto enters the field, it has an auto ability that triggers that removes all forwards from the game. If you have a copy of 7 in your hand and 1 in play, you can just discard that copy and counter the ability of Shantoto. Some of the other Class 0 cadets, Sync being a fire forward, and Scythe being the more important one because when Scythe attacks, choose one forward opponent controls until end of turn. It loses 1,000 power for each job Class 0 cadet character you control. So with Scythe, um, 7 and Sync, you're able to give minus 3,000 power, which is quite relevant, being that if your opponent has 4-drop AK forwards trying to block these guys, you're able to effectively give it minus 3,000 power, and they will have to trade their uh, 8,000 power forward for one of the two CP forwards that you got from Golbez. Moving on to a more recent addition to the Golbez list, going standard units with 2-drop Pugilist from Earth. For each drop standard unit forward other than Pugilist you control, Pugilist gets 2,000 power and starts at 5,000 power. So imagine a scenario where you crack your Golbez, go for Pugilist, and 3 other standard units. All of a sudden, you have a 11,000 power forward on the field. I mean, obviously, there's going to be combat tricks and removal that could take out the other guys or him or the Pugilist himself. So some of the other ones that you add to that package that haven't been mentioned yet would be the Marauder, which is pretty big. He's a beefy guy. So, or girl. Yeah, that's a girl. So, um, 2 fire CP forward. When Marauder attacks, Marauder gains plus 8,000 power until the end of the turn. Starts off at 1,000 power. One of the things about Marauder is it is still a 1,000 power forward most of the time, but so if you're able to deal with it during your turn or before she is declared as an attacker, then you only have to deal 1,000 power to it. Warrior, 2-drop 8,000 power. That is way above the curve. Problem is, if Warrior receives damage, double the damage instead. So you would effectively only need to deal Warrior 4,000 damage to break it. But any effect that says something like power reduction will not be as effective against Warrior. It will still work, but in comparison to other 2-drop forwards, Warrior is not as impacted as well by power reduction as other 2-drop forwards. Like Marauder will only take minus 1,000 power reduction to break. Warrior would take 8,000 power reduction, but only 4,000 power to break as well. 2-drop Ninja, another haste guy. So if you count them up, we've got Tifa that has haste. We've got Light Onion Knight that has haste, and also Ninja has 2-drop haste. So if you wanted to, and you included all of them, you could have 3 hasted forwards go at it against your opponent. So yeah, that can be a problem at times when you're trying to finish off a game. Haste can kind of do that kind of tricky last unaccounted for sneak damage when your opponent just thought, hey, I only need 1 blocker to deal with this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, and now there's a haste guy on top of that. So there goes the match. I've definitely seen that happen before. Lightning Red Mage giving haste to something like an Amon, and all of a sudden you've got your 2 blockers are dulled, and the other guys go in for the win. And yeah, so haste is a thing, but if you stabilize well enough, sometimes you're okay. But 3 hasted forwards coming at you is no joke. And if you don't want to go for a one-time haste, instead you can just go for Ramza, and he will give. So he's a 2-drop lightning forward. When a forward you control is put from the field into the break zone, activate Ramza. Dole, choose 1 forward. He gains haste until the end of the turn. Dole, choose 1 forward. He gains plus 1,000 power until the end of the turn. And he comes in at 5,000 power. So he's on curve. 2-drop 5,000 power is just about the norm. But the fact that he can give other forwards haste or plus 1,000 power to hopefully trade up, and that if they do trade up, he's able to reactivate himself if they break, and after that do it all over again. He's useful if you can keep him on the board. I will say that. I haven't seen too many decks be that successful with him, but he's just such a toolbox that you almost want to include him. But there's just so much out there in terms of creature removal or forward removal that could deal with him easily that I usually tend to keep him out of there. But I'm sure somebody's gonna find a way to break him, or he's gonna have his day to shine. I mean, look at all his abilities. He's definitely a lot of value, just like the 2-drop Warrior of Light. So that's it for this week. Hopefully, you guys will have some fun watching the live stream on Sunday. Um, personally, lately I've been playing what was it? Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia on mobile. Great game. I mean, there's just so much Final Fantasy going on right now. We just got Dissidia NT that came out earlier this week. Hopefully, gonna get some more new players. I'm gonna make some new player videos in the near future. Also, Dissidia Opera Omnia is just a bunch of fun playing it with a lot of the other community members in the local area, uh, having a having a blast. And other than that, well, hopefully you guys will catch us this weekend and have fun. See you next week. Otherwise.